Okay, hey YouTube. I was going to make a themed video here, but instead I'm just gonna do a miscellaneous kind of updates because it's been 2 weeks since my last video. So I think some of you might have been worried. I know I saw some of the Facebook messages. And it's I think about 15 weeks post-op now. And so my last video 2 weeks ago was right after I'd come back from seeing Dr. McGinn, and I can say that since then things have started to heal up a little bit nicely because she used the silver nitrate stick on the granulation tissue, which helps that heal up, which then helps make dilation, more, whatever. It makes it easier. I was gonna say more enjoyable. That's also true, but maybe implies something else, which anyway. Now I gave it away. But yes, so things are getting much better there. I can sit comfortably, which is convenient because my little inflatable donut popped. So I don't have anything to sit on now, which I don't have to carry around and be awkward. I don't have to dilate at work. Even though that was, very gracious of them to set that up for me, it's kind of awkward to go down there and go into medical and whatever, and now that I don't have to do it as often, and it's easier to do it, yeah, like, less of a chore, it takes up less time, because it takes less time to get to depth. So overall, point of this story, feeling pretty good, pretty happy, pretty healthy, and so now I feel like I have kind of a little bit of extra energy as a result, and I think it helps now that daylight savings is here and more sunlight, things like that, but all that together kind of, helps combine and put me in a much better place than I was even just a few weeks ago. So, obviously that's fantastic, and it's allowing me to now go and start looking at doing some other things. And so one of those things is updating my birth certificate. And I was born in Ohio, so I've always heard and read and seen on the internet, whether that's on the ACLU or Lambda Legal or Trans Ohio, that Ohio won't change birth certificates, but it turns out that they will, and I don't know how long this practice has been in place. It may just be a change in administrative policy or whatever, but if you get a court order for a gender marker change, they will update your birth certificate. So now I have to go find a court order, and apparently in Texas they can be kind of spotty to get, unless you go talk to this one lawyer who's really expensive. So I'm going to try to find maybe somebody in Ohio who can do it. And, it helps that my brother is up there in law school and has some connections, some professors there and some people I'm talking to. And I'm going to try to get that changed. And all that sort of feeds into something that I think is a bigger problem within the trans community, is that we spend so much time focusing on how everybody has an individual sort of story narrative. Like, you don't necessarily have to update your birth certificate if you don't want to, type of approach that it is hard to find sometimes good, accurate information. And I think that if we start looking at, sort of the entire trans journey holistically, we can start to maybe identify some really key areas where we can work to make things a little bit better, a little bit easier, a little bit, less difficult. And that includes things like, workplace non-discrimination, but beyond that, you have these companies out there giving insurance to people like me to go get surgery, which is fantastic, but then insurance makes it about as difficult as possible for me to get my money back, and there's a lot of other stuff you have to go through, and as an MBA, I found that process sort of very difficult, and I'm a, highly educated person who works in headquarters, and I can go, find the person in HR and talk to them face to face. So what about employees out in the field? And if it's happening at my company, it means it's happening at, companies all over the United States. And so I'm actually in the process of trying to, work with the HRC to kind of lay out, some guidelines around sort of these are the different things that trans people are, can potentially go through, and, not necessarily go through all of them are in any particular order, but, a company and an insurer need to understand, the physical, legal, and medical aspects and all of the toll that takes on your employees. Or you need to go to the government and say, look at what trans people have to go through just to kind of live their authentic identity. It's a lot of work. And I think that, that's partially because nobody looks at the holistic picture. It's all of these things that add up together. And this is actually similar to the, position that Wendy Davis took when talking about the abortion laws in Texas, and kind of how these restrictions would make it so difficult that it would become kind of, from a practical terms, almost impossible to get an abortion in Texas. And the law may or may not be intentionally trying to do that to trans people. That's a separate conversation, but there are ways to make that easier. And so rather than, spending all my time making videos, I'll still do it. Those are some of the things that I'm trying to focus on right now, to help lay some groundwork for bigger things that are yet to come.